Made in Sweden for export. That was how Mamma Mia was introduced on Australian television, where ABBA fever was already reaching unbelievable levels. At first, local representatives of the record company were denied permission to release the song as a single. Selling the entire album seemed like the more profitable strategy. But in the end, the persistence of the Australians paid off. Very quickly, one thing became clear. ABBA records in Australia were not simply selling, they were flying off the shelves.
On the ABBA studio album, Mamma Mia appears as the opening track, but in reality, it was the last song recorded for the album. By that point, 10 songs had already been completed, yet the group still felt they needed one more really strong track. There was only a month left before the scheduled release of the album, and then one of those strange moments happened that later become part of music history. In the studio, Benny came across an instrument he had never used before, a marimba. Very soon, it would give birth to that unforgettable intro people would recognize instantly for years to come.
By 1975, the group had already found its own sound, and as the music evolved, so did the members themselves. Agneta and Frida had grown enormously as vocalists.
When I first met Agneta, ABBA sound engineer Michael Tretto later recalled, she quite often sang out of tune. But under the influence of Bjorn and Benny, she began to understand the importance of every single note. Something awakened in all of us once we realized that if we could escape the shallow world of Schlager music, we could make truly high-quality records.
Speaking about Frida, Tretto said,
"She was highly professional from the very beginning, but working together with Bjorn, Benny, and Agneta gave a completely new impulse to her creativity. All of them were developing and improving within the group."
But the road to that sound was far from smooth. Bjorn and Benny often made Agneta and Frida sing the same parts again and again, searching for exactly the right result. Patience would run out, the girls would start swearing, and arguments would erupt in the studio.
Frida and I are very similar in one way, Agneta said at the time. We both have terrible tempers and explode immediately if something doesn't feel right to us. But Frida definitely has more patience than I do, something I completely lack. We actually get along wonderfully. The conflicts usually happen between me and Bjorn and between Frida and Benny. Obviously, it isn't always easy to live and work together.
The basic track was recorded in just a single day. After that, as often happened with ABBA, the group's manager, Stig Andersson, was invited in to come up with a title for the new song. Stig listened to the recording and almost immediately blurted out, "Mamma Mia, that sounds great." A short pause followed. Then he said confidently, "Mamma Mia, that's what we'll call it."
The basic story of the song came from Bjorn. He wrote the first draft of the lyrics quickly, without polishing every line or searching for perfect phrases. Then the usual ABBA process began. Bjorn, Benny, and Stig gradually refined the lyrics until they felt right. To their own surprise, the whole thing came together very quickly.
There were no major problems with the vocals either. Agneta and Frida were in good spirits. Work on the album was almost finished, and only this song remained.
After the vocals were recorded, a few additional musical layers were added to the track, finally creating that unmistakable Mamma Mia sound. On March 15th, less than a month before the album's release, the song was finished.
After the recording sessions were over, nobody sat around in the studio replaying the songs and trying to figure out which ones would become hits. There were album covers to finalize, releases to prepare, and other projects waiting ahead. Benny was already working on Frida's solo album. Agneta was returning to her own recordings, while Bjorn and Benny continued producing music outside ABBA as well. For the four of them, finishing the album was simply another stage of work that had already been left behind.
At the beginning of May, all four members of ABBA decided to spend a couple of days out in nature, on the same island where they would sometimes relax on new ideas. A few bags with food and drinks, a boat, fresh air, and a rare chance to step away for a moment from the endless musical race. After months of intense work, they could finally just sit together, talk, laugh, and breathe a little easier. When the time came to leave, Benny and Frida decided to stay on the island for one more day, while Agneta and Bjorn had to return to their usual routines. But before long, Benny realized that his idea of an extra day of rest might not have been such a good one after all. Frida was enjoying the holiday a little too much. The mood kept getting lighter, and the idea of returning to everyday life became easier and easier to postpone. So Agneta and Bjorn left in the morning, and Benny and Frida left in the evening.
May 1975 was passing unusually quietly for ABBA. The album had already been released, and now all that remained was to watch it begin to live a life of its own. The major trips and concerts were still ahead. Björn was spending more and more time at Stig's office, where the two of them discussed plans for the future, both for the group and for the label itself. And then Björn would drive over to Benny's place. The two of them could spend hours calmly working on their ideas, playing through chord progressions, and coming up with new melodies.
Behind the cheerful sound of Mamma Mia was a theme ABBA would return to again and again in the years that followed. A woman understands that a relationship is hurting her, yet she cannot help herself. The mind resists, but emotions win. Later, songs built around exactly this kind of emotional conflict would become one of ABBA's greatest strengths.
Over time, one of the small trademarks of Mamma Mia became the famous dance with the raised index fingers. It first appeared during one of the rehearsals. The music sounded light and playful, and at some point, Agneta began moving along with the rhythm, almost absent-mindedly raising her index fingers into the air. The gesture felt so natural and matched the mood of the song so perfectly that it soon became part of the stage image of Mamma Mia.
The single was released in September 1975, and within just a few weeks it became clear. Mamma Mia was turning into a major international hit. Number 1 positions followed in Australia, Britain, Germany, Ireland, and Switzerland. Number 2 in Belgium, New Zealand, and Norway. Alongside the success of the single, album sales also rose sharply. The commercial results were far stronger than even the members of ABBA themselves had expected. But something else mattered even more. ABBA showed the world that they were far from being a one-hit wonder, which many music journalists had already started calling them after Waterloo.
The story of Mamma Mia did not end there. Years later, the song found an entirely new life, this time as part of a major musical production. In 1999, the musical Mamma Mia, built around the songs of ABBA, premiered in London. The production quickly became a worldwide phenomenon, millions of spectators, dozens of countries, new generations of fans. And a song, written in the spring of 1975, once again found itself at the center of attention. Then came the movies, finally turning Mamma Mia from simply an ABBA hit into a huge cultural phenomenon that continues to live on today.
Back in the spring of 1975, it is unlikely that anyone in the group could have imagined just how far all of this would go. That people would still be singing the song decades later, that musicals and movies would be built around it, and that audiences would continue recognizing it from the very first seconds. But perhaps the real secret of Mamma Mia was actually very simple. There was simply too much life in it for the song to disappear together with the 1970s.
Subscribe for more stories about ABBA.